The spreadsheet didn't make sense. I'd been staring at it for 3 hours, cross-referencing investment returns against actual market performance, and the numbers were impossible. Garrison Capital Management was reporting 14% annual returns to investors, consistent every single quarter for 8 years, regardless of market conditions. But the underlying assets they claimed to hold showed losses in half those quarters. I pulled up another tab, checked the custody account statements, and felt my stomach drop. The securities they claimed to own didn't exist. The account balances were fabricated. Garrison Capital wasn't investing client money, they were using new investor deposits to pay returns to existing investors. It was a textbook Ponzi scheme worth approximately $400 million. And in my parents' bedroom safe, I knew there was a statement showing their entire retirement savings $340,000 was invested with Garrison Capital. Let me tell you about discovering massive financial fraud, realizing my own family would lose everything if I exposed it, and the choice that still haunts me 3 years later. Before we get into this, subscribe and hit that notification bell. This isn't about simple right and wrong, this is about what you do when doing the right thing destroys the people you love most. Let's go. The job I thought I wanted. My name is Ethan. I'm 32 years old, and 3 years ago I was a junior compliance analyst at Harrington Securities, a mid-sized broker-dealer based in Boston. Not the most exciting job. I reviewed client accounts, flagged suspicious trading patterns, made sure our advisors followed regulations. But it was stable, paid decently, and I'd gotten my Series 7 and Series 66 licenses. I was building a career in finance. My boss was Elizabeth Park, Director of Compliance. 15 years in the industry, sharp as hell, took exactly zero nonsense from anyone. She'd hired me straight out of University of Massachusetts with my finance degree because, as she put it, you actually read the regulations instead of just pretending to understand them. One Tuesday in September, Elizabeth called me into her office with a file folder. We're conducting enhanced due diligence on an outside investment manager. Garrison Capital Management. They're not affiliated with us, but 6 of our clients have invested substantial assets with them through private placement. I need you to review their performance data and custody statements, make sure everything looks legitimate. Why the scrutiny? The returns are too consistent. 14% annually, like clockwork, for 8 years straight. Through 2008. Through COVID. Through every market swing. That's not normal. That's suspicious. She handed me the folder. Inside were account statements, performance reports, and marketing materials for Garrison Capital Management. The firm was run by a man named Marcus Garrison. 63 years old. Former hedge fund manager. Claimed to use a proprietary algorithmic trading strategy that generated steady returns with minimal volatility. Minimum investment, $100,000. Total assets under management, approximately $400 million from about 380 clients. I took the file back to my desk and started digging. The marketing materials were slick. Glossy brochures. Testimonials from satisfied investors. Charts showing those smooth, steady returns year after year. The strategy was vague: quantitative analysis of market inefficiencies, and systematic risk-adjusted positioning, but that wasn't unusual for hedge funds. Nobody wants to give away their secret sauce. The account statements look professional. Detailed transaction records. Specific securities holdings. Account balances. Everything appeared legitimate. But when I started cross-referencing the data, things got weird. Garrison claimed to trade primarily in S&P 500 index options, buying and selling calls and puts based on market movements. But the transaction records showed trades executed at prices that didn't match actual market data for those dates. I pulled up historical options pricing. The trades Garrison claimed to have made were literally impossible at the stated prices. Then I checked the custody statements, documents showing which financial institution actually held the securities. Garrison claimed to custody assets with Prestige Trust Company, a small trust bank in Delaware. I called Prestige Trust and asked to verify account holdings for Garrison Capital Management. The representative said, "I'm sorry, but we don't have any institutional accounts under that name." "Are you sure?" The client provided custody statements with your letterhead and account numbers. "Sir, those statements are fraudulent. We've seen this before, someone creates fake documents using our logo. If your client has money with this firm, they need to contact law enforcement immediately." I felt cold. I pulled up the Securities and Exchange Commission database. Searched for Garrison Capital Management. The firm was registered. Marcus Garrison was listed as principal. Everything appeared above board from a regulatory standpoint. But the custody statements were fake. The trade confirmations showed impossible transactions. The returns were too consistent to be real. I spent the next 6 hours pulling every piece of public data I could find. SEC filings, court records, news articles, corporate registrations. What I found was damning. Garrison Capital Management had no actual trading infrastructure. No Bloomberg terminals. No clearing relationships with major brokers. No technology stack capable of executing the complex options strategies they claimed to use. Their office was a virtual address, a mail forwarding service in a Boston co-working space. Marcus Garrison had been sanctioned by the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, FINRA, 12 years earlier for unsuitable investment recommendations. Not banned, just sanctioned. Enough to raise red flags but not enough to prevent him from running an investment firm. And most telling, the pattern of investor deposits. New money coming in averaged $4.2 million monthly over the past 8 years. Returns paid out to existing investors averaged $4.1 million monthly. Almost perfectly matched. Classic Ponzi scheme math. Use new deposits to pay existing investors. As long as more money comes in than goes out, you can keep the scheme running for years. I pulled up the client list, the 6 Harrington Securities clients who'd invested with Garrison. Total invested, $2.8 million. Then I saw a name that made me stop breathing. Morrison, Robert, and Linda. Account value, $340,000. My parents. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button now. Because this is where it gets impossible. Notification bell. Let's go. The family connection. I sat at my desk until 9 p.m., staring at my parents' account statement. They'd invested $340,000 with Garrison Capital Management 2 years earlier. Their entire retirement savings. Dad had worked 37 years as a plant manager at a manufacturing company. Mom had been a school librarian for 32 years. They'd saved carefully, lived modestly, planned for retirement. And they'd put every dollar into a Ponzi scheme. I called Dad's cell. He answered on the 3rd ring. "Ethan, what's up? Kind of late for a call." "Dad, I need to ask you about an investment. Garrison Capital Management. You and Mom have money with them." Pause. "How do you know about that?" "I work in compliance. It's my job to know." "How much do you have invested?" "That's between your mother and me." "Dad. Please. How much?" Another pause. "Everything. Our entire retirement account. $340,000. Why? Is something wrong?" My throat was tight. "Who introduced you to Marcus Garrison?" "Your Uncle Paul. He's been invested with Marcus for 6 years. He's made over $80,000 in returns. Totally reliable. 14% every year like clockwork. We figured if Paul trusted him, we could too." "Uncle Paul. My dad's younger brother. Retired postal worker. He'd invested his pension with Garrison too. Dad, I need you to listen carefully. Don't panic, but I think there might be a problem with that investment. What kind of problem? I can't give you details yet. But I need to know, do you have any withdrawal restrictions? Can you get your money out? We can request a withdrawal anytime. Takes about 30 days to process. But we're not withdrawing. The returns are great. Why would we pull out? Because in 30 days, when I reported this to the SEC, the whole thing would collapse and their money would be gone. Just do me a favor. Don't add any more money to that account. And don't tell anyone else to invest with Garrison. Okay. Ethan, you're scaring me. What's going on? I can't say yet. Just trust me. Please. After I hung up, I sat in the dark office and tried to think. The math was straightforward. If I reported Garrison Capital to the SEC immediately, as I was legally and ethically required to do, regulators would freeze the accounts within days. The scheme would collapse. Investors would get pennies on the dollar in the eventual receivership, maybe 10 to 15 cents for every dollar invested, if they were lucky. My parents would lose approximately $290,000 of their $340,000. Uncle Paul would lose everything. The other investors, 380 people total, would also lose most of their money. But if I delayed reporting, more people would invest. The scheme would continue. More victims. And if I somehow tipped off my parents to withdraw before reporting, I'd be committing securities fraud myself. I'd be helping them front-run the collapse, screwing over the other investors who didn't get the warning. I could save my parents or I could do my job. I couldn't do both. The investigation. The next morning, I went to Elizabeth's office and showed her everything I'd found. The fake custody statements. The impossible trades. The Ponzi scheme pattern. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she asked the question I'd been dreading. Do you have any personal connection to this firm or its clients? I could have lied. I could have said no and recused myself from the case. Instead, I said, yes. My parents have $340,000 invested with Garrison. Their entire retirement savings. Elizabeth closed her eyes. Jesus, Ethan. I know. You understand you can't be involved in this investigation anymore. Conflict of interest. I know. You also understand that I have to report this to the SEC immediately. Today. Your parents are going to lose most of that money. I know. She looked at me for a long moment. Did you tell them to withdraw? No. I asked if they could, but I didn't tell them to. Because if you had, that would be securities fraud. You'd go to prison. I know. I'm sorry, Ethan. I really am. But we don't have a choice here. What if we gave them a few days? Just enough time for my parents to submit a withdrawal request. Garrison processes them in 30 days. By the time the SEC freezes accounts, they'd be in the queue. No. Her voice was firm. Absolutely not. That's illegal. We report today. The SEC freezes accounts today or tomorrow. Your parents' money is gone. I'm sorry. I wanted to argue. Wanted to beg for just a few days. But she was right. I went back to my desk and called my dad. Dad, I need you to listen very carefully. That investment I asked about yesterday, Garrison Capital, it's a fraud. It's a Ponzi scheme. The SEC is going to shut it down within the next 48 hours. Your money is gone. I'm sorry. Silence. Then, what do you mean, gone? The firm is fake. They're not actually investing the money. They're using new investor deposits to pay fake returns to existing investors. When the SEC freezes the accounts, you'll probably recover 10 to 20 cents on the dollar. Maybe less. But we have $340,000 in that account. The statements show. The statements are fake, Dad. The money is gone. I'm sorry. I heard Mom in the background asking what was wrong. Dad's voice broke. Ethan, that's our entire retirement. Everything we saved for 35 years. We can't lose that. We can't. I know. I'm so sorry. Can't you do something? You work in compliance. Can't you delay the report? Give us time to withdraw. Dad, if I do that, I go to prison for securities fraud. And you'd still probably lose the money because Garrison doesn't have it to return. Then what do we do? I didn't have an answer. Elizabeth filed the report with the SEC that afternoon. By the next morning, federal agents had raided Garrison Capital Management's virtual office address and frozen all client accounts. Marcus Garrison was arrested trying to board a flight to Costa Rica with $3.2 million in cash and a fake passport. The scheme had been running for 8 years. Total investor losses, $387 million. About $43 million remained in liquid accounts, roughly 11 cents on the dollar for investors. My parents got $37,400 back. They'd lost $302,600. Uncle Paul got $28,000 back from a $250,000 investment. 378 families lost their life savings. The aftermath. It's been 3 years since Garrison Capital collapsed. Here's where everyone stands. Marcus Garrison is in federal prison. Sentenced to 22 years for securities fraud, wire fraud, and money laundering. He'll be 79 when he's released. His victims got to give impact statements at sentencing. My father was one of them. He stood in that courtroom and described how he and my mother now live on Social Security and food stamps because a man they trusted stole their future. The SEC and FBI investigation revealed that Garrison had been living a lavish lifestyle. House worth $4 million, yacht, private jets, all funded by investor money. He'd siphoned off approximately $60 million for personal use over 8 years. That money is gone. Spent. Unrecoverable. The court-appointed receiver managed to recover $43 million in liquid assets plus another $8 million from selling Garrison's personal property. Total, $51 million to distribute among investors who'd lost $387 million. Recovery rate, 13.2%. My parents received a final distribution of $44,880 against their $340,000 investment. Net loss, $295,120. They're 73 and 71 now. Dad took a part-time job at Home Depot. Mom works at the library again, 20 hours a week. They live in a small apartment, had to sell their house to make ends meet. They're getting by, but they're working into their 70s doing jobs they'd retired from, and they'll probably never stop. Uncle Paul had a heart attack 8 months after the collapse. Stress-related. He survived, but the medical bills made his financial situation even worse. He lives with my aunt in a mobile home now. They're both working part-time. His pension covers rent and food, barely. Other victims had it worse. One elderly couple in the investor group committed suicide 6 months after losing everything. Their note mentioned Garrison by name. They couldn't face poverty after a lifetime of careful saving. Several investors lost homes to foreclosure. One family had to pull their daughter out of college. Her tuition was supposed to come from the Garrison account. I still work at Harrington Securities, but the relationship with my parents has never fully recovered. They know I did my job. They know I followed the law. They know I couldn't have saved them even if I'd tried. But they also know I discovered the fraud and reported it, which triggered the freeze that locked up their money. In their minds, even though they'd never say it out loud, I'm the reason they're working at 73 instead of retired. They've never blamed me directly. But there's a distance now. A sadness in my dad's voice when we talk. A look in my mom's eyes that says, my son works in finance. He knew. And we still lost everything. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell. Because the question I'm about to ask has no good answer. The questions I can't answer. Here's what keeps me awake at night. What if I'd given them 48 hours before reporting? Marcus Garrison processed withdrawals in 30 days. If I'd told my parents to submit a withdrawal request on Monday, and I'd reported to the SEC on Wednesday, their request would have been in the queue. When the freeze happened, would they have been treated as creditors with a pending withdrawal? Would they have gotten anything? Probably not. Garrison didn't have the money. Any withdrawal they processed would have come from new deposits, which dried up immediately after the SEC investigation became public. But maybe, they would have gotten something. Maybe their request would have been partially honored before the collapse. Maybe they'd have gotten $100,000 instead of $44,000. Was that worth risking federal prison for securities fraud? And what about the other 378 investors who didn't get a warning? If I'd tipped off my parents to withdraw, I'd have been giving them an unfair advantage over investors who had no idea the scheme was about to collapse. I'd have been helping my family steal from other victims. One of those victims was an 82-year-old widow who'd invested her husband's life insurance money. She lost $180,000 and now lives with her daughter because she can't afford rent. Could I have lived with myself knowing I'd helped my parents get out while she lost everything? But she's a stranger. My parents are my parents. Does that matter? Should it matter? The law says no. Ethics say no. Every compliance training I've ever taken says personal relationships don't override professional obligations. But when I see my dad stocking shelves at Home Depot in his 70s, wearing an orange apron and lifting heavy boxes because I reported a fraud that destroyed his retirement, professional obligations feel pretty fucking hollow. Elizabeth Park told me I did the right thing. The SEC investigators thanked me for my thorough analysis. I got a small bonus that year for exemplary professional conduct. I would trade all of it to give my parents their retirement back. Here's the thing nobody tells you about whistleblowing: you can follow every rule, do everything legally and ethically correct, and still destroy the people you love. The Ponzi scheme was going to collapse eventually. It always does. When schemes like Garrison's run out of new investors, they implode. My report might have accelerated it by a few months, maybe a year. But those months mattered. In those months, my parents could have withdrawn their money. Garrison was still processing redemptions. They could have gotten out. Instead, I reported it immediately, as required by law, and their money was frozen forever. Did I save other potential victims from investing in those months? Probably. Garrison was still actively marketing to new investors when I filed the report. But I know exactly who I saved: strangers, hypothetical future victims who never lost money because the scheme ended. And I know exactly who I didn't save: my parents, Uncle Paul, that elderly couple who killed themselves. People say I prevented more damage. That if the scheme had continued, losses would have been even bigger when it eventually collapsed. They're probably right. But try telling that to my dad when he's working at 73 because his son reported the fraud that locked up his retirement savings. I made the legally correct choice. The professionally correct choice. The choice that protected the most people in aggregate. I followed every rule. Did everything I was supposed to do. And my parents will be working until they die because of it. The choice I can't unmake. Sometimes I imagine the alternate timeline. What if I'd spent 48 hours verifying my findings before reporting? Just 2 days. Enough time to tell my parents, you need to withdraw immediately. Emergency. Don't ask questions. They'd have submitted the request. Garrison would have processed it over 30 days. Some of that money might have come through before the SEC freeze. Would they have gotten everything? No. Probably not. Garrison didn't have the funds. But would they have gotten more than $44,000? Maybe. Maybe $150,000. Maybe enough that Dad wouldn't be stocking shelves. And yes, that money would have come from other investors' deposits. I'd have been helping my parents front-run the collapse. It would have been securities fraud. If caught, I'd have faced federal prison. But my parents would have had their retirement. Is that evil? Selfish? Corrupt? Or is it just being human? I think about the SEC investigators who work these cases. The FBI agents who arrest guys like Marcus Garrison. Do any of them have family members invested in Ponzi schemes? And if they do they give them a 48-hour heads up before the raid? I'll never know. But I suspect that the reason these cases take months or years to build isn't always about thoroughness. Sometimes it's about giving certain people time to get out. I didn't do that. I reported immediately. I followed the rules. And my parents lost everything. Was I right? Was I wrong? The law says I was right. But the law doesn't have to watch my dad push shopping carts in the parking lot at 73. 3 years later, I still don't know if I made the right choice. I know I made the legal choice. The ethical choice by the standards of my profession. But when ethics mean your parents work until they die while strangers thank you for doing your job, I'm not sure ethics are enough. So here's my question, what would you have done? Would you have reported immediately, following the law and protecting future victims, knowing your parents would lose everything? Or would you have given them 48 hours to withdraw, risking federal prison and helping them take money from other victims? Be honest. Because this isn't theoretical. People face these choices. And there are no good answers. Drop your answer in the comments. And subscribe if you want more stories about impossible moral choices, because the world isn't black and white, and sometimes doing the right thing destroys everything you love. Hit that notification bell. Next week, I discovered my employer was dumping toxic waste into the river, reporting it would shut down the factory that employs my entire town. See you then. And remember, sometimes the rules are clear, but that doesn't make the choice any easier.